Last week I talked about something, I guess you could call it God first. And I think that should be pretty much understood in all the years I've been teaching. God first. And it sounds to some people like philosophical, kind of like even religious to some people. But all the time I've been teaching, from the very first talk back in around 1980 till now, it's always been about this God first. Now, I don't just walk around and preach those words, but it's in everything I've ever taught. Whether it was about intimacy and relationships, or about Christ consciousness, or about oneness, there's always this feeling, this vibe about God first. Because it's not, but again, it's not preachy, but there's this concept of what could be more important than being guided in all the things we do. And then people are thinking, oh, you mean like on a Sunday? No, I mean it is possible, but more than possible, it's inevitable that we're all going to get back to that place. See, even when we first came to planet Earth, although we already believed in separation, that's how we got here. We got here and we lived in a sacred space, a consciousness. Everything else is just a reflection of that. The mother of empires, Lemuria. This isn't a talk about Lemuria today, but Lemuria was an ancient civilization. Pre-Atlantis, and that one you may not even believe in. So if this is all a little out there, just tune out for a minute. All right? Think about a ball game or something, on Sundays, But the truth is, there's this ancient civilization. And these people believed in sacred living. But they didn't call it that because they didn't have to, because that's all they knew. They didn't have to, we're now going to start a group and it's going to be called, breathing back into God, or entering oneness, or nobody had to think like that to even do anything, because that's all they understood. So that to me is beautiful. So, but if I had to give that thing a name, it would be called sacred living. Then it becomes sacred sexuality, sacred, diet and health and wellness and holistic this and that. At one time, none of that had to be named, not even sacred living, but it was the lifestyle was sacred living. And this was about making God a priority. You can't have that without God. But people are out there thinking they can. We're going to vote a new politician and that'll be the answer. No, they won't. They will not. Because if somebody even brings in something called sacred living consciousness, first of all, you can't even make it very far into politics with such thinking. And if you do, you're going to be a wonderful, beautiful guy, like Jimmy Carter, who nobody thinks about. But because he's building houses, he's not going out on tours, charging hundreds of thousands of dollars to be in his presence. And they're not even worth being in the presence of. This guy's building houses for, people with less means. That's what it should look like. But nobody remembers him because it's hard to adapt sacred consciousness into a place like politics. I'm not saying it's impossible. All we can do is a day at a time. Our forefathers tried that. They did something with it. But I'm saying that the world of politics, the world of medicine, they're all against sacred living. They make a living not allowing sacred living. So, not to be fooled that it's not going to be by getting this thing to happen. People can be hanging out at your local granola store, and they're thinking, we're just hanging out here eating organically because we're all about sacred living. Really? Tell me about God. Oh, God, I don't really know about that. I don't believe in that. That's putting power outside yourself. Then don't call this sacred living. You're just eating granola. That's all you're doing. You're not different. There's nothing fantastic happening. There's no angels swooping from the higher heavens to be in your presence while you gnaw on granola. They want to know what's happening in your soul. So I'm glad you're taking care of your body, but at some point, you're going to come to realize I don't even have a body. All this time I was combing something that wasn't there, petting something that wasn't there. You're a soul and you better take care of your soul because that's all that matters. So we have to feed our soul, not the body. Now, if you're feeding your soul properly, it'll guide you to the right diet and all that. I get that. But that's not your priority, is the food. Your priority is not what the movies you watch, but it can be soul food. Music isn't going to be your thing that saves you, but it is soul food to feed the soul. But the soul needs to be the priority. But even my soul can be starving if I don't plug it into God. Got to plug it in. just like your vehicles nowadays, plug it in, let it get charged. So the soul has to be alive. So last week I was talking about making God a priority, and I even asked, hey folks, how many thoughts do you have a day? It's in the hundreds of thousands, incidentally, but how many thoughts do you have a day? And then how many of them are about God? How many thoughts do you have about food? About the body in some way? Do you realize almost every thought is somehow related to your body, your limited self, which is really kind of weird. I think I'm going to have a life where almost all of my thoughts are things that don't even exist. It doesn't make any sense. I'm going to worry about food to feed a body that I don't have. I'm going to think about illnesses related to a body that I don't have. Oh, look, a gray hair, a wrinkle, and all these things. I'm going to get somewhere on time. Well, who's going to get there on time? Your soul's already there. It's all about this thing that we are not. Now, I was saying, look at the comparison of hours and minutes and thoughts that go towards God. Now, immediately people think I must mean you're supposed to walk around going, oh, money, oh, money, and reciting chants. I told a funny story once. George Harrison had his house, broken into by somebody that came to kill him. And the guy almost did it. It was 1 inch from his heart when he stabbed him. But what's interesting to me is George was, realized this guy suddenly rushed into his kitchen and starts stabbing him and attacking him. And George is wrestling with the guy. And his wife comes out of the upstairs room and she's yelling, George, telling him, hell, something's going on. Watch out and be careful and all that. But George, the whole time that he's wrestling with the guy, he started reciting a mantra about giving up the body and dying. So you just picture this, wrestling that, and I think it's just brilliant. That's called faithfulness, man. Even being attacked, God first. I think it's great. Instead of let me save myself and think about God later. And I'm not wronging anybody who doesn't do enough of this. I'm just saying perspective. How much do we really think about God? And then you think in terms of going, it's got to be like religiously. You have to wear certain things and you have to bow and onto your knees. And I don't mean that. And I talked about the number of times. So I'm saying there's really two ways that you think about God. Overtly speaking. It may not always seem overt, but I mean it by term of choice. One is fearfully and one is celebrationally. One is kind of, am I doing this right? And God, and it's kind of like worrying, kind of like God is something in the sky watching over you and you want to know if you're doing okay. That's better than not thinking about God and only thinking about yourself. So that's good news. But the other way to think about God is, what if I need do nothing? What if I'm already plugged in? So in other words, there's the type of person that is asleep, and they're not interested in any of this. So they just think themselves a lot, which is technically narcissism. And people that think all about themselves, they're being narcissistic, they're being selfish, and so on, and fear-based. But then there's people who start thinking more about God, and they pray a little bit more and so forth. And that's wise. That's moving in the right direction. We simplify that if we just remember to start and end each day with a bit of connecting. I don't even want to call it prayer, because that has too much of a negative tradition to it. I'm going to pray to God in the sky because I'm really messed up and I'm hoping God will find pity for me. That's not what I mean by prayer. So I call it connecting or communing, which is basically to open ourselves up with words, if you like, and welcoming God in. So it's a tide. Here I come and here you come. It's like this beautiful communion until the movement in and out disappears and I am plugged in. And then that's one way to do it, and then it evolves. All of my choosing to think more about God results in my learning to feel more of God. Then even feeling more of God becomes poof. I'm in communion. And then there's nothing separating. Sort of like saying I'm back to sacred living. And that's like the Lemurian culture. This idea of sacred living. It's impossible of me thinking to harm you. And if I did, it's impossible for me not to apologize. And it's impossible for you not to accept my apology. You see? Even if I make choices against my own higher good, eating or drinking or drugging or whatever, something that doesn't feel congruent with my higher self. Oops, got it. My apologies. Not just to my body, but to my soul, because I bargained myself away there for a moment. Same with romance and relationships. So there's this beautiful symbiotic communion and very Lemurian-like. And then mankind fell further and further into the lower mind kind of controlling life and further from our hearts and souls and so on. So I'm saying that we go from a place to learn to think more about God, then it becomes feeling more about God, then it becomes communion, communing with God. Now, I mentioned some of this last week. How much do you think about God? Now, here's going to be the tricky part. It's not actually just the concept of, guys, let's think about God more often. How? Start and end each day. I said there's two ways. Start and end, make an effort to commune. The other way is to be the presence for other people. Don't just walk around chanting it or, starting the day with it but not living it. One part is plug in, the other is bring it. That's how you have more of a day with God or a day of prioritizing to God. Perfect. Now, the second part of this conversation is this. So I ask again, how often do you think about God? Now, let's pretend the majority, as a group, let's pretend as one voice, all of you watching this could say, let's pretend you're having a good day, and it's 10%, because it isn't. But let's pretend that we collectively think about God 10% of the time. All right. Now, the next part of this isn't actually about quantity. It's about quality. Because if I asked you and you were really honest, you say, well, I got to be honest. I have a lot of thoughts. I got work. I got to pick up the kids. My thoughts are not always about, God. It's not. So let's pretend it's 10%. I'm actually going to tell you it's actually 100%. Every thought you ever have is about God. That seems like good news, but it isn't. Every thought you have is about God, but is it a love thought or a fear thought? Okay? That's the trick. So the good news is, we're not faithless, we're not godless, we're always thinking about God. Nice job. Wait, there's a problem. They're not good thoughts. So every thought we have is about God. So for example, you meet somebody, you fall in love with them. There is nobody. When you think you're falling in love, your ego wants to hijack your thoughts and make them about outside things. Whenever you think, I painted a painting and it's beautiful, every thought is about God. So and if you don't agree, that's fine, but pretend you do for a few minutes here today. Imagine, what if it's true that every thought is about God? Then that means even when I look at you and objectify you, wow, you're looking really hot. I'm telling you, you must have had a thought of actually getting closer to God, and then your ego took it and made it about something. You started off well. I'm feeling beauty. Oh, you're looking kind of nice. And your eyes took it away. Your senses took it away. When you do, stop for a moment. Catch yourself. Don't wrong yourself. Just catch yourself and go, oh my God, I got it. In that moment, that person was so good looking, but that was an attempt for me to take my connection and put it on a person. Why? Because if you put it on a person, you don't have it with God. Temporarily, you didn't destroy anything, but you did put connection on pause. You pause the button. It's like, so now you're not getting anywhere. So you can snap back, take it off pause. How? Take it off the person and back to yourself. Every thought you have, every painting. You paint a beautiful painting. Do you know how that happened? I must have been plugged in. If you just get in awe about the painting, you've actually lost your mind. That's a funny way to word it. It's kind of what happens. All of our thoughts are about God. You can sit here and you can say, I love this talk. Thank you. I'm glad. I do what I can and so on and so on. That's great. But guess what? It's also speaking about your connection. If you say this is the absolute worst talk I've ever heard, it's speaking about your disconnection. But it's still about you and God. Everything is about you and God. When you feel love, it's actually your love for God. You're longing to experience God again. But since I don't see God with my senses, let me just settle. You look kind of nice today, and you make it about a person. But the same with negative projections. One's called transference and one's called projection. And it's the same with projection. If I am not feeling connected with what? God. Because everything's about God. And if I'm not feeling connected with God, do you understand that that would naturally make me feel awkward? You feel awkward because something's missing. When you walk out of a store and your car's not there. And take that, multiply it infinitely in terms of knowing how it feels to start a day and not feel God. Like missing your car, and then multiply it. Beyond what the mind can even comprehend. How do I know I had that thought of feeling disconnected? That's what I meant by love and fear. One is feeling plugged in, and one is fearing that I'm not plugged in. But you're always plugged in. Because God created you, you're going to always be part of God. It's not about whether we're with God or not, it's about how you feel. I'm not feeling plugged in. And then watch what happens. Well, I'm not really thinking God stuff right now. I'm not thinking spiritual stuff. What's your mind on? Well, I got this thing happening. Someone betrayed me. What that means is I feel betrayed by God. The person's playing the role. What else are you feeling? Unloved. Sorry to hear that. Do you know what that means? You actually believe there's a chance that God doesn't love you. This is where it gets tricky in the talk because it's going to sound almost religious because we're using the word God so much. Get over it. Just what part of you is funky with that? And work on that. Because this is just the truth. Guys, every thought. When you got dressed and you went, oh, God, I look kind of nice. I'm telling you that what it means is you could not have felt anything good had you not felt plugged in on some level. Then when you made it about your looks, you simply blew it again. So catch on and go, it's not just how I look, it's how I feel. Close your eyes and talk about the feeling. I can't have looked nice in the mirror here for a moment if on some level I wasn't feeling good. Honestly, because if you felt horrible, you wouldn't go, I feel terrible, but I'm looking kind of hot. It just doesn't usually connect. If you're feeling that off, it's really hard to put on a mask. You can try, but that's tiring. When you're feeling an ache, you're not bad. It doesn't mean I must have sinned. What it means is you felt something was off in you. Just see it, and it's impossible. I'm telling you, it's impossible for you to truly ever be completely disconnected from God. You can only feel it, feel disconnected. Well, why would I ever feel disconnected? Because you want to. Part of you has gotten into a pattern, in all of us, a pattern of feeling undeserving, unlovable, and so on. But it isn't just about our partnerships. The reason counseling and drugs and medicine can't fix people is because it isn't an external problem. It's coming from the inside. It's coming from the inside. I've had times when I was getting body work done, and I don't just go and get body work. I'm there. I show up. And this isn't bragging. It's kind of a vulnerable thing to explain. But I've had a moment where we're getting some body work done. I remember this gentleman working on me and so on. And he's kind of sort of a dry, it was like Lurch from Addams Family, It's not like he was all like, he was just real. He wore a Pendleton. He looked like Fogerty from Creedence Clearwater. He had his Pendleton on. But he knew what he was doing. He was a master at his particular work. And, he's working me, and I mentioned something about this recently, but he's working on me. And there was a moment where I almost fell off the table because of the angle, but I wasn't really going to fall, but it felt like I was. Again, the key word, but I felt like it. And he caught on that I was feeling like I'm going to roll off the table. I wasn't going to. But he's so sensitive, he caught on that I felt. And he said, I'm not going to let that happen. And I started getting tears in my eyes. What's that about? A human being, first of all, knowing that, I just, got chills even saying that a human being even cared enough, communicated the care, knew exactly what I was feeling and said, I got you. Connection brings feelings. even to a new level. I was worrying and he brought it to healing. Make sense?
Yeah.
And I can remember that all these years later, at least 20 years ago, I think. All these years later. Connection takes us the other direction. Disconnection keeps reaffirming that I need to be afraid, that I need to stay obsessed on fear, worrying about what's not happening, worrying about what could be, what might happen. Connection just, boom, it just brings us right here. Our heads are still going to try to screw it up. Yeah, but what if I did fall off? And what I said to that voice, because you're going to have that voice. But what if he's wrong? What if it surely feels like I'm going to roll off? Here's what I said to myself. Jimmy crack corn and I don't care. Even if I roll off the table, I refuse to let it disprove that this person cared. You get that?
Right.
I refuse. Because I know that's what the ego would like. I refuse. I've already accepted love. So, and I just drop into another level. And there you have some healing. Healing what? Of the body? The soul, man. My soul was feeling healed. The body's just going to catch up, as we let it happen. So something beautiful. Now, some people can say, and I am saying, all of us, all of the things that happen to us are a statement. I'm either plugged in or I'm not. When something's going well, guys, soak it in, man. It means you must have been plugged in on some level. You got to get past this. Maybe someday, if just one more asana, one more year of healthy food, dietary stuff, one more this and one, stop. We're there. And start recognizing you're there by the experiences you're having every day. Your thoughts, your words, your deeds, all of it. They're just mirroring to us how we're doing. How you doing today? Oh, I'm good. People just give a gratuitous answer. Good, thanks. Hey, how's it going? All right. But really, how are you today? And the answer is, am I plugged in? And what's amazing is if I'm not, I can choose again. In one split second. I mean, how much easier can we're spoiled, man. We're totally spoiled. We don't go, well, I slipped today, so now it's going to be, I got to go to the church and do 5 Hail Marys and 6 Our Fathers. And you don't have to do anything but plug in. If you want to do the other things to help you plug in, then go for it. And if you want to, dance in a group and stand on the mountain and drum a drum, anything you do is fine. But know this, you're not separate in the first place. So start off owning that you felt separate. I felt separate. I felt separate. I felt separate. I felt, Go ahead. Own that you felt separate. Beat on the drum. Chant. Ring the gong. Do all of it. I think it's beautiful. Those tools are supposed to be used to get you to go and center. They're not supposed to take you out. They're supposed to take you in. So you use those things and go boom, just, boom, 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 right here, boom, to your center and plug in. The actions of the ceremonies, the rituals, they're fantastic. They absolutely are. If they're used to plug in. If you just do them horizontally, just go ahead. Keep, doing this technique and doing that and eating this. It's all horizontal. I don't care if it's pages out of the Bible. Tear each page out, lay it around the ground, and look at it. Horizontally, it's not doing any good. Read anything, and let it pull you in, and it becomes holy. Let it go nowhere. How holy can it be if it's not creating a wholeness in me? If it's not making me one with God, what good does it do for me to do pranayama breathing or whatever other thing out there in the world? There's no book holy enough to fix you if you don't want to be whole. So there's no holy enough site on planet Earth. There's sacred sites, Peru, Giza, all around the planet. And all of them are screwed up with taxes and rates and rules and laws and regulations. There's all these amazing sacred sites in England. And they just let animals just rip it apart, walking through the churches. And it's just the weirdest thing, some of these things. I don't go anymore because all of it's been so abused. And I like people. To me, there's nothing more sacred than people. So I'd rather be here than, in a temple somewhere where people are just such control and so many issues in these countries. We go to sacred sites, and in some places, like the Great Pyramid, you're not allowed to pray. You're not allowed to chant. You're not allowed to do anything sacred in the sacred sites. Well, that's okay. Do it in here. But I can't justify hauling people around the world saying, well, we're not allowed to do anything, but just get it inside. They'll go, well, then why did we pay you to take us? Could have got it in Cleveland, or wherever they live. And I agree. I can't with a clear conscience take them there when we're going to run into all that strange stuff. So I like gatherings of people with right intentions and right consciousness. So all of our thoughts can be corrected in a split second. And it doesn't always feel that way. I get that. It doesn't always feel, no, I'm way far off. That's fine. If you lost a loved one, I don't expect you to bounce back in the next 5 seconds just because you can say, ready, go. However, I'm just saying you can feel better and you'll heal faster when you plug in. You're allowed to take your time, but do you want it to take lifetimes, years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, or seconds? That's free will. He says in A Course in Miracles, this course is inevitable. Everybody has to take it, not the book. Everybody has to learn what's in there, love and forgiveness. He says, but when you choose to take the course is totally up to you. So everybody's going home, but when? And I would never, you don't want to make a religion out of anything, including what I'm saying here today. You don't want to leave here and say to people like at the grocery store, somebody's complaining, you overcharged me. And you don't want to be saying, oh, someone's not plugging in apparently, like Michael said. Wronging them is not what you're supposed to be doing. But everything I see is part of me. And it's reflecting to me, am I plugged in? Are there exceptions? No. But there will seem to be. For example, one that comes up now and again. Well, Michael, if you're saying that the outside world reflects the inside, Jesus was really mistreated. Buddha was mistreated. And they asked him why. And he said, well, because in other lifetimes I did this and this, so it's coming back to me. That's pretty dang responsible if you ask me. He didn't say, I don't know. I'm so spiritual. I don't know why anybody would be mean to me. Right? He didn't use the victim thing that we use in spirituality often. So Jesus was pretty maltreated, right? Every imaginable thing done to him. So can it be true that here he is all, supposedly peace, love, Christ consciousness, and yet he's being completely abused and murdered? Plotted against, murdered. And he never said to these people, after all I've done for you. He never went in that direction at all. So this is where it gets tricky. Well, if Jesus was holy and he was mistreated and our outside reflects our inside, then does that mean he was messed up? Yes and no. What it means is he had to be here and have the opportunity to believe that. And he chose not to. That's why he very specifically tells you in A Course in Miracles, I was completely abused and for no reason because I held a completely sinless, flawless, holy state of mind. But then he adds, but I chose not to see it that way. Now watch this carefully. He didn't say it didn't happen. In this world, it does appear to be happening. So he doesn't deny your eyes from thinking it sees something, but he says, I chose not to see it that way. What does that mean? It means that even if you're holy, stuff of the human consciousness is still going to come at you. Your holiness is determined by whether you believe it or not by it happening. That's where it gets tricky. Because humans so often go by the outside, they assume, well, I'm on the spiritual path, stuff shouldn't be happening. I can't believe I still have to pay taxes. I've been reading A Course in Miracles now for weeks. I can't believe, and my landlord, I can't believe, why don't they get it? Boom, 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 boom. No rent. No rent. Oh, no rent. I'm going to chant rentlessness into my life, I'm going to visualize, it's, the holiness comes from my choice to say there are two worlds, the real world that I see around me in my third dimensional experience with all my senses, and then there's the real world of God, and then one that overlays it. the one I've projected. So the real world and then the lowercase r real world over that. So when I look out in my life, I'm seeing this one, the one we've manufactured. How do I get to see the other one? It isn't through an election. It isn't through a certain medicine that's going to be invented. It isn't anything to do with the third dimensional world at all. The third dimension is a dimension of dementia. It's one to keep you from seeing clearly anything. It's going to make you see things that aren't quite centered and right and accurate. So what I do is I learn to heal my mind, meaning my soul, not my intellect. I learn to heal my mind. I'm seeing this and this and this, but I take responsibility and say, not today. I see that I'm reflecting to myself a chance to judge or forgive. And that's what it all comes back to. If I open my eyes today and I see someone rejected me, oh, they rejected. You're making it now a reality, your reality. If there's a you who can reject me, first of all, I must not be a glorious child, made in the image of God, because I'm powerlessness enough to be rejected. I'm not like infinitely powerful. I'm just, little, lowly. And you rejected me. Now my day is really off. And then, all dejected and all that. And then, now I'm going to judge you for doing it. I'm hurt. You caused it. And that's my reality. And now the next day, I start the next day going, I am now affirming that I am hurtable. I'm hurtable, vulnerable to people's opinions, subject to whatever mood they can put me in. That's what you're affirming. Now, am I saying to do the opposite, like pretend? This did not happen. This did not happen. I was really not rejected. I am beautiful and wonderful. What you're doing is you're shining up a tombstone. It's still a tombstone. You're just polishing a tombstone. Well, isn't that pretty? Yeah, but you're still dead inside. So what I really need to do is stop and go, wow, look at this. Own it. Own it while you beat the drum and chime the chime, because those sounds take you inside. And you go into a place where the sounds disappear and you become open to learning. And you say, what's really happening here? Well, they what? They made me feel. So how do you feel? I feel, now. I feel rejected. How could you feel rejected? What are you feeling? I'm just miserable. I'm sad. And they keep going and look at the ego layers of yourself. This is how I feel. Hurtable. Oh, I just had a flash of this memory. Oh my gosh. Oh, there's that. Now we have what's called a pattern. So now I have a pattern of rejection and betrayal and hurt. And you just drop into that for a moment like, wow, look at this experience I've had. Now, Michael, is this who you are? It's who I thought I was, right, but were you correct? Would you like to be that to be true? I don't want it to be true. Are you willing to let go of the idea that it's true? Oh, certainly. Would you like to do that now? Yes. What do you think would be there when you do? Because some parts of us think it's got to be worse. That's how hurt we could be. You have to be willing to own that the other world behind this one is better, or you'll never commit to it. Just like somebody stays in a relationship that's terrible, but they don't know if there's another one that's better, so they stay in that one. It's familiar. At least I know everything's messed up. This could get worse. What kind of affirmation is that of your soul, of your character? Honey, I don't think you're as bad as it gets. I've been thinking. And instead, you know what? If I'm committed to connecting with God and the world mirrors how I'm doing inside, I have a sneaky suspicion in a very good way that this is going to get better. Because as I plug in more, my life is going to get better. Whatever else may have happened in my life and in this world, it's time. It can change in an instant. And just that little process, which can actually be done in seconds. I took 60 seconds to word that process, but it can actually be done in seconds. And as you get better and better at knowing, just recognize, accept, surrender, you're halfway there. Then refill and give thanks. The better we get at that, it starts becoming a boom, boom, boom. Now, if ever that becomes a quick process where you go, fine, recognize, accept, surrender, and now it's just words again. It has to come from the heart. Has to come from the soul. I really do get it. Now, to know that it's coming from the heart, first of all, I feel a shift. But also, even as I'm still in the process, usually there'll be something amazing that I didn't expect. A memory, something flashing, and then I know I'm really there. If I'm just repeating it by rote, just words, then it's all kind of from the head and it's flat. So you'll know. You don't have to push yourself and, how do I make this sincere? You don't have to be on your knees. You don't have to be crying. But the bottom line is it's not flat. And then you'll know you're doing something that's real. You'll feel either more real, humanly exposing and opening, or you feel more plugged in. One of the two things is going to happen, if not both. So what do we do? What do we do to have God first? It's not just think about God more. Part 2 to that talk today now is not just plug in more. It's the quality. I'm saying technically you're always thinking about God. First you have to own part 1. I don't think about God very often. It's very rare in the day that I center and pray. Work on that, which sounds like a contradiction. No, plug in and do that. But part 2 is saying even when you don't think you're plugged in, you're still reflecting how you feel because you are always with God. But you're reflecting whether you know it or not. You're reflecting whether it's a happy relationship or not. So part 1, plug in more. Part 2, improve the quality of it all through the day. Not just the moment you plug in, but all through the day. What's really happening? How am I really feeling? What's really going on? Anytime, if you think someone's harassing you, you're actually, recognizing how you feel about God. Somebody's shaming you, you're recognizing this is how I feel about God. But even if someone's harassing you, on some level you believe that God is picking at you, finding fault with you, flaws with you, and only one person can change it. Well, if God were nicer, no. But it does reveal how I think about God. I actually think that God is a micromanager. I actually think God is out to get me. How do I know that? I got pulled over by a cop today. Gave me a ticket. Cops. And they have quotas. And you make up all these stories. And instead, if that was God, Michael, blame me. Just say Michael claims this was a God experience. So then what does it mean? Well, let's see. I think that I need policed. Something's wrong with me. I totally need police. I can see it. I date crazy people. I eat unhealthy ways. I have complete addictions and so on and so on and so on. That's why the cop showed up. Because I think I need policed. Or it could be, wow, that was amazing. See, I've only been pulled over a few times in my life. Maybe half dozen, in fact, over all my years. But 4 of those times, they let me go with no ticket. I mean, I was crying. No, I'm kidding. No, really. They let me go. Now, it's not them letting me go that makes a difference. There's one time, for example, twice actually, where when I got pulled over, I let them write the ticket before I actually told them what really happened. And I knew if they really knew, they weren't going to write me up. But I didn't want to sway them, which sounds weird because you want to get out of the ticket. I don't. I'm just going to surrender to whatever's needed to happen. Because it's just reflecting. Every time I've shaken the hand of the officer afterwards, whether they gave me a ticket or not, it didn't matter about the ticket. Shake their hand, thank them. Because you're just a part of me. Are you a part, though, that needed, I better recognize I need a bit of policing in my life? Could be. Or are you a mirror of, oh, God's taking care of me? If I was driving too fast, let's say, or whatever, it's a protection, perhaps, mirroring a protection. When the guy was doing body work and almost fall off the table and then, oh, I got you. What is that? Well, how dare him? What does he think he is? I know if I'm falling off. You could do that with people, and then it's telling you how you think about God. What does God think you? I know better. That's what you're doing. You like the people, you don't like the people. You know, I've shared before, even odd experiences. I had one guy, doing body work on me, and I could tell he was working too deep in a specific area along the back of the ribs. And I'm like, you got to be careful that boom, he broke a rib. And it's like, but guys, I still went back to him later on after it healed. I still went back. Yeah, it took a couple months, but went back and, he got close again. I said, be careful. And he almost didn't listen this time. I'm not telling you to go back to people that hurt you. What I'm saying is I felt right enough to do so. Because I'm the type that will test something. I'm going to go and take this and look at it as a test. Am I going to judge this person? Am I going to hate this person? Am I going to blame? That's just somehow, for some reason, various reasons, that's what I do. It's not like an obsession or a compulsion. It's just sometimes that's what I do. And I can still tell you, it's not what others are doing. It was a test. So people will do things in our lives. They did it to Jesus, Buddha, you, me, Mother Mary. Everybody's going to have stuff happen. And our job is to say, if this is a test, what is the test and how do I pass? I can guarantee you, judging, hating would not be a passing grade. Love, forgiveness is always a passing grade. Now, do we just go, okay, fine, I love and forgive? The words are just words. It's got to be an action from the heart and soul. You have to really understand, not, fine, I'll forgive them. The forgiveness basically morphs and evolves to the point of us understanding there is no them. This was a reflection of my own process. And how am I doing? And then how do I improve upon it? Where I slip, let me improve upon that. That's why I went back again. Let me check and watch and see how I'm feeling about this. It brings us to a level of spiritual maturity that other things in this world will not be able to do for us. Simply exercising the power of choice. To judge is human and to forgive is divine. Right? So look at your thoughts, part 1. How often are you really plugging in each day? And work on that. Part 2, the quality of the thoughts. All of my thoughts are actually about God. And what are they? That you love God or that you hate God? Do you love God or do you fear God? Oh, I don't fear God, really? How was your day? Well, it was great, except I drove through McDonald's, man, and they ripped me off. $2, and they refused to give it to me. Really? Is God so petty to you? You think God swiped $2 from you today? No, I was talking about McDonald's, and I'm saying they're all the same. How you feel about yourself is projected in your outside world, believe it or not. But how you feel about God is projected into our world. Because everything is just God and self. Others are just the mirror of God and self. So how are you doing? I'm doing fine, I just don't trust. Who don't you trust? I don't trust the medical association. Okay, except everything's a part of God. Everything's your relationship with God being mirrored. I'm not telling you that means that they're not doing weird things, because again, they did hurtful things, people, to Jesus. But what did he mean by, I chose not to see it that way? You see, you follow? He's not saying nice people only have nice things happen, mean people have naughty things happen. No, everybody has both. And it's about our choice on how to perceive it that determines whether we're plugged in or not. Today, I'm choosing to unplug. How do I know that? Because you irritate me. And I don't want to get over it. And I don't want to forgive you. You just irritate me. There are just certain things that you do that it's unforgivable. Wow. No problem. What you've just said to the universe is, make note, here's where I draw the line in terms of my willingness to be one with God and with myself. And the universe says, okay, 3 lifetimes from now, we're going to set you up with a certain situation where you can really work on that, sweetheart. Because we love you. And we certainly want you to get it because we love you. And so you get signed up for more of it. Whoever it is, they closer and closer, and the issues bigger and bigger, more blown up, so that we'll get those simple lessons, those tests. I say simple, not always seemingly simple. But imagine, if we get so aware, so responsible, that we realize, just imagine, pretend for a moment, nothing happens by chance rather. Nothing can happen by chance. Everything's by choice. On some level. If I choose to believe I'm plugged in, and I don't mean you're a bad person if bad things happen to you. I'm saying those things are mirroring to you, how do you believe about yourself today, honey? And if I react and choose to see them as bad things that I refuse to love and forgive, it's affirming that I myself am such. Okay? I'm flawed. Certain things people do are unforgivable. What did that just say about me? That means that I actually believe things I have done are unforgivable. And yes, people have done some really wicked things. It's tricky wording, guys. I'm not denying that they seem to happen. I'm saying what we have to do is correct our choice to believe that they're happening to us rather than for us. They're reflecting things about ourselves. And because God's involved, we have absolutely all the power that we need to fix it, to correct it, to switch it. It's not like, okay, how do we get there? That's what people think the spiritual path is about. Working harder to get there. True spirituality, spirit-driven spirituality, spirit would mean I'm already there, so how do I remember that? Not how do I get there, how do I remember it? And then I start to see all the things in life are simply tests and things coming to me to help me get there. Because whatever's happening is mirroring my consciousness. So by Jesus doing what he did, stepping up into a really wicked environment, everything, tossed at him, he really took it to another level and said, I want what seems unforgivable. Because human beings, basically, if you asked them, if you interviewed the souls of all people, we all believe one thing's for sure. And that is harm done to people that don't deserve it is the most unforgivable. Whether it's the Nazi Germany and the Jews, whether it's slavery, whether it's the plight of Native Americans, it's even weirder when they don't seem to deserve it. If somebody did something, you don't think as harshly about it. If somebody did something to somebody and the person kind of deserved it, by our opinions. But when innocent people, children, animals, think about it. We have an extra charge. And Jesus therefore says, I'm going to be the ultimate innocent. I've done absolutely no harm, nothing, in any way, shape, or form in this lifetime to deserve this. Now, have your way with me. Boom, boom, boom. Hitting, beating him up, crucifying him, stabbing, all this. And then he says, they're forgiven, for they know not what they do. And he's teaching us. Now you're telling me that the store not giving you $2 back is it's unforgivable? Well, kind of, because my fries were not fresh either. You're going to throw in something to justify. Keep trying. But what you're saying is, this is where my line is drawn. Here's my limit on patience. Here's my limit on love. Here's my limit on forgiveness. You're just, that's all. And I'm not making you wrong for it, but you are wrong for it. And by wrong, what I mean is, you're believing you have a limit, you do not. You're incorrect. So just own that for now, this event seems unforgivable. But I know that I'm eventually going to forgive because I'm a divine being. I'm made up of the ability to forgive. And that's kind of cool. Because you're saying, I may not be there now, but I'm affirming I will get there. If you want to be hateful, you're not even going to affirm that you can ever do it. And once in a while I meet people that'll say that. I don't care how spiritual I become. I'm never going to forgive them. I say, well, I understand. Don't wrong them or shame them, because that'll make the distance even longer for them. Love them, hear them, understand them, bridge with them, support where they're at, and they'll get there sooner. All making sense? Good job, guys. Thank you. Let's please take a few centering breaths. Nice fluid breaths. When we're inhaling, we hear the words I am. And when we exhale, the word relaxed. Just a nice tide in and tide out. Affirm it. Affirm it so that your back muscles can drop in and just relax. Only using enough muscles in the body to hold yourself up, which you don't have to do consciously. But you feel your shoulders, your neck relaxing more. Emotions in the mind. Part 1 that we shared last week, how often do I think of God? How often, how many minutes per day are spent? There's a lot of minutes in a 24-hour period. How many of them are spent connecting with God? How might they be? First, by my literally communing, meditating, praying. And then secondly, by being that presence. How many minutes per day am I calling in that presence and living it? Being kind, giving, supportive, healing. How often am I being the Divine Mother to children of the world, including animals? How many minutes per day am I consciously connecting? And just decide, can you commit to more of that? The easiest thing, start and end the day in that state of mind. Surrender. An attitude of surrender and gratitude and communion and celebration, and bringing that to the world. And then part 2, the quality of our thoughts. So what if all of my thoughts, even just starting with today, being awake however many minutes, throughout this day, however many minutes, every thought I had is telling me about God. Either that I am connected or not connected. So how many thoughts did I have that were love, peace, joy, abundance, oneness? How many thoughts were the opposite? How many thoughts were about fear or competition or comparison? How many thoughts were about frustration, not good enough, or others not being good enough? Look for a moment or two at this, that both opportunities. How much time did I put into either? I'm always connected to God in some way, but is my life showing me I feel connected or disconnected? Either way, it's a feeling. Only one is of any value. Take a minute more to look over the day. Don't exclude any example. And if you try to, you should ask yourself why. Something as simple as, oh, I can't wait to have my morning cup of coffee, which is really my longing for God. God is my source of energy, vitality, not the coffee. Then, in one thought, reconnect with God and then drink your coffee. You get to have your cake and eat it. God and then the rest. Everything is about my relationship with God. Oh, somebody gave me such a warm hug when I arrived here today. That's God. How did you feel about the hug? Did you soak it in? Can you accept it as thank you? Thank you to the person who hugged you, but thank you to me because it mirrors that I must have felt plugged in. Very cool. Then it will multiply if you're faithful for what is already given you. Everything. Someone spoke ill of you. Sorry that happened. They clearly know not what they do, and the only reason they could do that is because they don't feel plugged in. So, what can you do? Plug in yourself. And then you will vicariously help them in some way, unknown perhaps to you. So in this moment, we're closing with choosing to see everything differently. The whole world, in fact, the whole universe, is a part of me, reflecting something to me. What about me? Always that I'm plugged in or feeling unplugged. It's not complicated. Two things, always. I am or I am not. Spiritual self, ego self. And no matter how far off I feel in my life, my day, emotionally, financially, or whatever, just one thing that I heard or thought or felt today can help be the doorway home. By seeing a positive was there, it reflects a positive in me. That's watering and feeding that seed until it can grow to be the greatest in the forest, overshadowing all else of the past. And so it is. Before you open your eyes, just a breath or two, really integrating what we've shared today. How's everyone feeling? Good.